In the early days of the internet, there were animated series that could range from being short random videos made for fun to something that is trying to tell a story. Growing up, the animated series I watched was HE Double Hockey Stick Spenders, which was a show about the two guys and their roommates. But that's a story for another day. Today we're going to be discussing the strange but simple story of Baman Piderman. For those of you who don't know what Baman Piderman is, it's an animated series that has its roots as a class assignment, but then ended up becoming an internet series that has technically spanned the time of almost 15 and a half years. Of course, this isn't weekly or even monthly, since over the time only 26 episodes have been released, with most episodes being between 1 and 3 minutes. Some reach the 4 and 5 minute mark, few reach or are close to the 6 and 7 mark, but surprisingly, the longest episode is 14 and a half minutes. The main reason for these short episodes and large breaks is mainly because the people behind the series, Alex and Lindsay Small Butera, also known as Small Blue, are animators who have worked on other animated series, so Batman Piderman seems to have sadly come second at some points. The show was even shelved for about a year and a half, back in 2012 to 2014, but luckily a Kickstarter was able to bring it back. But now it's been 5 years since the last full episode of Baman Piderman, with a portion of a new episode being shown back in March of 2021, so it's quite possible that people have forgotten the story or don't even know what it's about in the first place. But that's where I come in. I'm the middle axolotl that brings you and this series together. I'm here to recap the whole story/lore of Baman Piderman. Before I continue, I highly recommend that you watch the whole thing yourself. It's just nearly 2 hours, you don't have to watch it all in one day, you can watch an episode a day if you want. It's funny, it's great, and I want people to know about this nice little show. But for those of you who don't want to watch it on your own, or don't have the time, I'm here for you. Before we get into things, it's important to know the rule that everything is canon, but that doesn't mean we're going to mention every little detail, such as how cereal turns you green, or how the sound from episode 1 pops up in episode 3, or how peanut butter could be used as a medicine if you eat a lot of cake. Also, I'll let it be known what episode I'm talking about in the top left corner. Now let's get into the story of Baman Piderman. At first, it doesn't seem that Baman and Piderman know each other, but over a phone call that Piderman may have started, they will quickly form a friendship by introducing themselves to one another and by making a plan to watch a movie. Batman even finds Piderman his sandwich, which could also have helped with that. Next time the two would hang out, Batman would bring a pumpkin with him, which would be used as a service for the duo to play a counting hand stacking game. This pumpkin is actually alive and brings a new character to the cast called Pumpkin. Something small I feel like mentioning about this episode is that at the end we see a building and possibly more in the background. Since everything is canon, this place must exist, and it does. Back to that later. Batman and Piderman would then form a band and make a song that would end up being the intro for every episode after. The two accidentally left a character out of their band, which was Tuba, who Batman would confess his love to right after, saying sorry for forgetting about her. This will be the start of Batman and Tuba's relationship, which sounds strange, but this is how things go down in the series. We would then see Piderman's web shooting powers, which would mainly be used to drag himself around and hold things, and he has trouble associating the number 3 to an object, which Batman will then help him with by letting him know that it's his house. Batman will then enter his own house and drive away. The next time the two would hang out, Batman would be stuck in a stack of cakes which Tuba would end up helping him get out of by eating/inhaling all of them. Once out, the three would go upstairs and see that Pumpkin is asleep, implying that Pumpkin is Spider-Man's roommate. Pumpkin would have a slight jealousy of the main duo's friendship, since Spider-Man would make Batman a card that lets him know that he is his best friend. Pumpkin knows that he can't let this jealousy take over him, since he ends up approaching the duo and Tuba later with his own card, letting them know that he likes them as well. He was just a little jealous. Tuba and Batman will be eating dinner, but Batman has to leave since Piderman wants to play a game with him. We see Batman move in a strange way, which is the first glimpse of his body being weird. He seems to be able to manipulate his body and later on even grow and regenerate limbs. It then shows that Pumpkin could double as a console, but he only has a number guessing game, which could be due to the hand stacking game. While playing, the basement door will open, which scares the trio, but Pumpkin would ultimately be the one to check out what happened. Batman will hear carving, and when he turns on the light to the basement, imposters of Batman and Piderman could be seen carving a face into Pumpkin. Everyone would scream, including Pumpkin. We now have 2 new characters, that guy and the other guy, and together they're those guys. Each imposter will have the body of who they're impersonating, but the clothing of the other. So the Piderman imposter would have Piderman's body, but Batman's clothing, and the other way around for the Batman imposter, Batman's body and Piderman's clothing. Piderman will end up being afraid of what's in his basement, and Pumpkin, since he's now a screaming jack-o'-lantern. Batman will talk to his boss about shipments and then go over to Piderman's place to announce that they're going to have a sleepover. During the sleepover, those guys will come out the basement and announce that they're going to make a cookie pie and need blood as an ingredient. And it seems that they get it since the 4 would be eating the cookie pie at the end of the episode. Pumpkin is now starting to rot and is still screaming, but Piderman ignores him by using some earmuffs. Batman will come over and tell Piderman a joke about potatoes that's so funny that they tell everyone. When they tell those guys in the basement, it seems that they have a pizza with a face, which they would quickly hide by putting it into a bag. When Piderman tells Batman's boss, the boss gets angry and chases the group as they try to get away in Batman's house. This makes it clear that Batman's boss doesn't like jokes. It's now snowing, so Piderman brings Batman, who is playing a board game called Take Turns with Tuba, a gift. Before he could open it, the boss brings the tube Pumpkin, who is all rotten and brown, and Batman states that they could go on a journey to help Pumpkin. They ask those guys in the basement if they know where they could go for a journey, and they respond by saying, "It's time," and throwing the pizza on the wall. The pizza would then open its mouth, which would open a portal to what I like to call the pizza dimension, which is this area that has trees and snow. The two would walk in and the mouth would close right behind them. While in the pizza dimension, Batman would get pupils from a snowman, which seems to give him psychic powers, and when asked about it, he simply responds that it's better that Piderman doesn't know. They then see a tree move, which ends up being an egg for a tentacle monster called a squib. The squib will chase them around until the two jump into a house that has Tuba's dad in it, who asks Batman when he's going to marry his daughter. They ask if he knows where they could get a wish, which he responds by stating that the wish was in Batman all along. His emblem would then open like a drawer and reveal that a wand was inside of Batman. They would then use this wand for a wish to make Pumpkin better. Pumpkin ends up getting fixed. He's no longer a jack-o'-lantern, and he now has a body. Batman will finally be able to open the skiff, which contains the squib inside of it. This squib has now become a part of the cast and is called Squib. Batman and Piderman will then be outside discussing how they should throw Pumpkin a feet day party to celebrate that he now has feet. Inside the house, Pumpkin will be reading a book as Squib tries to touch his shoe, but then is shooed away. The duo would then pop up and make Pumpkin do the feet day dance. Then they will sing him a song with Squib playing the keyboard as the instrumental. During the song, we would see the Thing, which is this object best described as being in the shape of two intersecting macaronis with an antenna and a green flower on top. It's also plugged into the wall. We also see a ladybug with a menacing face. This ladybug is simply called the Bug. After the song, Squib would rip up the card they were singing from, which would get Batman mad and ask the question, what does Squib even do? And then he tells him to get a job, which he does by taking Batman's job. Within the Season 2 opener, nothing that could exactly drive the story forward happens, but we do see the Thing's antenna turn into what seems to be either an eye or camera on a metal stick. Pumpkin will end up waking up from a strange dream which seems to show a door leading to an attic. He then gets ready for the day by putting on a zip-up jacket. As he gets ready, we not only see some nice origami in his stand, but we also see a note on the wall that says, "Dress nice for the first episode," which could mean that Pumpkin knows that he's in a show. The note also says to avoid Squib. He ends up falling down the stairs and one of his shoes falls off, which Squib grabs. Pumpkin goes outside and approaches Piderman, and Piderman lets Pumpkin know that Batman is sad that he's lost his job. To cheer him up, they first try to make him a happiness cake, which ends up going horrible, so they write Batman a card to let him know that they love him. Batman would then go over it, but once there, Squib would grab Pumpkin and drag him out the house. Those guys in the basement would then offer Batman a job, but he enters and exits the basement real quick and doesn't want to talk about what just happened. The Bug would then offer Batman a job, which has him do taxes, and he doesn't like it. We then cut to Squib, who's holding Pumpkin up by his leg, but he simply wanted to return Pumpkin's shoe, which he does, then lets him go. Batman and Pumpkin end up returning to Piderman, who's playing Take Turns all alone, but he quickly cheers up when he sees his friends. It's snowing again, so Squib brings Pumpkin a gift, but Pumpkin doesn't know it's from Squib. The gift is a sweater with a heart on it that Squib seemed to have made, as seen with the stitches around the heart and the wrist pocket. This lets it be known that Squib has a crush on Pumpkin. Pumpkin then goes downstairs and uses the console again. It's just that this time his game seems to be more advanced due to him having a body. Piderman then invites Batman over to play the game, but he seems to be acting a little too normal, which makes Piderman form two thought bubbles that compare standard Batman to this normal Batman. These thought bubbles seem to stick around and everybody could see and interact with them, as evident with Pumpkin shooing them away. Piderman makes the imposter sing the theme song, and once he can't, Piderman freaks out and the imposter tries to crawl out the window. When he turns around, a zipper could be seen on his back, which Pumpkin notices, so he grabs Piderman's arm and shoots a web to zip it down. It's then revealed that the imposter Batman was those guys in a costume, and they sent Batman to the pizza dimension when they offered him a job. When asked why they did that, the other guy was about to explain, but that guy quickly shut his mouth and says just because. Piderman and Pumpkin then prepare to leave, and while preparing, Pumpkin tries to fit things into his wrist pocket, but he simply can't put anything inside of it. They then hop into the pizza, and Squib ends up falling right behind them, right before the mouth is able to close. They instantly find Batman, who's having a tea party with Tuba's dad, while having his finger in some substance in a pillar. He then pulls his finger out, and a piece of it is still stuck in the pillar. Then our red Squib ends up hatching and chasing the group down, but their Squib shows up and protects them by fighting back the other Squib. Those guys toss a rope, and Pumpkin is the last one to go up. He reaches out for Squib, who wraps a tentacle around Pumpkin's arm and puts his tentacle in the wrist pocket, which makes Pumpkin realize that Squib made the sweater. Pumpkin ends up escaping, but the mouth closes right behind him, so Squib couldn't get out. He tries to open the mouth to go back, but he simply can't, and there's a moment of sadness. But then the mouth opens up again and shoots out Squib. We would then see Tuba's dad go to the piece of Batman's finger that was left behind and take it. It seems not long after, Tuba, Pumpkin, and Squib would end up creating a band, and the three of them will end up making a song together. Back at Piderman's, the main duo will be holding the door to the basement shut, since the red squib escaped the pizza dimension and is trying to get out. They couldn't hold the door for long, so when the red squib broke out, Batman would attempt to fight it off with the wand in his chest, but it will end up being ineffective and the red squib will break the wand, releasing what seems to be a ghost. The red squib would then get a hold of the two and end up strangling them. The new formed band will walk in, originally wanting to show them the song that they made, but then end up needing to be the ones to deal with the red squib. Luckily, they already had a squib on their side, so they knew that they had to play a lullaby to get it to sleep, which they do with Squib on his keyboard and Pumpkin on the box guitar. They would then put the red squid back in the pizza dimension after it falls asleep. Those guys in the basement will end up kidnapping Pumpkin and sing him their version of the intro song since according to them, he would love it. Their version of the intro is where we figure out their names and they simply came from the basement. Squib will end up getting Pumpkin out of there when they weren't looking. Those guys will actually end up interrupting the next episode's intro in an attempt to sing their version of the song, but then will be pushed away. This will end up affecting the intro after that episode, since the duo will look around during the part they were interrupted at. We yet again see Pumpkin having another dream of the attic, and Piderman will end up having a weird feeling. When he tells Batman about this feeling, they will end up having a therapy session where Batman would ask if the cause of the problem was those guys in the basement, Tuba, or the thought bubbles. But once he looks at the thought bubbles, he will end up having a mini existential crisis, but snaps out of it when Pumpkin shows up and pushes the thought bubbles away. Batman would then suggest to Piderman to draw his feelings, and once he does, he ends up drawing a face which was the ghost that was haunting his house. The group will freak out and rush out the house. They would eventually need to return home and just deal with the fact, as seen with Pumpkin putting up a sign that asked the ghost to not enter his room. Squib would then enter Pumpkin's room and scare him, which would put a start to Squib Week, a whole week where Squib messes with Pumpkin by doing stuff such as throwing a cake at him, putting a hug me sign on his back, or simply scaring him. At the end of the week, Squib would end up trying to play his keyboard without to scare Pumpkin, but Pumpkin would be prepared and would place a box in the middle of his room, which he would jump out of to scare Squib. This will only work for a moment since Pumpkin will end up getting chased by Squib, but only end up getting tickled once caught. Before Pumpkin could get up to leave, Squib would blush and rub his neck, then grab Pumpkin's arm, pull him in, and kiss his cheek, and then quickly slither away. Pumpkin will end up being flustered and go to his room, wrap himself up in a blanket, still blushing. Pumpkin would yet again have the attic dream, it's just that this time the walls would cave in. He would then take a bath with his origami, but the paper crane will float and kiss his face, which would scare him and cause him to run away. This implies that the ghost has returned. Batman would then go over to Piderman to sing him a spooky song he made, but Piderman wouldn't want to hear it since he doesn't like spooky stuff and it would get dark soon. Once the clock strikes 7, the outside goes pitch black, and somehow, out of the void comes the red squib, who would then rush into the basement, and Pumpkin and Squib would also come out of the void a bit after. Pumpkin would then let the two know that there's spooky stuff going on upstairs. When they go to check it out and enter Pumpkin's room, his bed will end up being lifted and thrown by the ghost, revealing a door that was under his bed that looks like the one that was in his dreams. They originally weren't going to go in, but then everything in the room started to float and the door got barricaded. Once in, Pumpkin will look up and realize that he's in the place that he dreamed about. The group would then see a painting of someone on the wall. It seems that this person may have been the owner of the house before Piderman. The painting behaves like a door to a long hallway, and from the darkness we see the thing emerge, but this time it's on wheels and not plugged into anything. Its antenna eye ends up behaving like a flashlight, which allows the group to go down the hallway. One by one, the ghosts will get individual members of the group, starting with Squib, then Pumpkin, and then Batman. When Piderman is all alone, a ghost contract appears which lets Piderman know that the ghost was sorry for scaring him. When he checks yes to allow the ghost to stay and sign his signature, the ghost appears as a girl named Wanda and takes Piderman back to the living room. It's then revealed that the three who were taken by the ghost were simply sent to the basement. Those guys will be glad to have company for their tea party and would like to read them a poem. The poem seems to show their gratitude for having a tea party with the group and be sure to have the proper stuff like blood and tea and stew, specifically blood stew. They would then play a video of them having a tea party, and within the video, they go to the pizza dimension, which would show Tuba's dad, who seems to not want to be shown on camera while speaking to them. Pumpkin seemed to have been the only one to like the video, since everybody else fell asleep. Tuba, Squib, and Pumpkin would end up throwing a concert which Pumpkin is really nervous about, since a music critic would be there. While practicing, he would be visited by Wanda, who would remind him that she was the one that fixed him up. Pumpkin would then grab her arm in gratitude, which Squib would see and end up getting jealous over. All the characters we know and love would end up showing up to the concert, which would make Pumpkin so nervous that he can't move. Wanda would sense this and show up to aid the band by playing the flute, which would give Pumpkin a courage boost. During the concert, Red Squib would get bored and leave. He would seem to have entered a cocoon state, as seen with the red cocoon in the background. At the end of the concert, it would be revealed that Batman was the music critic all along, and that this was his new job, and that the bug was his new boss. Pumpkin and Wanda would high-five each other, then she would go over to Piderman and Tuba would go to Baman. While Pumpkin turned to go to Squib, he saw that Squib was gone and would later find him on the roof. Squib would basically give Pumpkin the silent treatment, but they would quickly make up when Pumpkin gives Squib his shoe. In the Season 3 opener, everyone was singing about how they have a good feeling, but some strange things would happen during the song. Wanda would glitch, and Tuba's dad would sing about how the day of reckoning is being near, and that he would soon finish his great mission, which seems to have to do with the piece of Batman's finger left behind. Once the song is basically over, Wanda would fly into the house and sing how she feels the feeling. A glitching ghost house would then appear, and it's a house we haven't seen before, but it does look really similar to Spider-Man's house. 3 other ghost houses would come out the ground, but the credits would roll before we could see the buildings in their entirety. Pumpkin would try to learn how to dance in secret, but Spider-Man and Batman would end up disrupting him because they need help painting the house. Pumpkin would agree, which means Spider-Man and Batman were free to hang around, but groaning would be heard from the basement, and when they go to check it out, they would find a sick pizza, and those guys would be nowhere to be found. Those guys would end up leaving a note saying that they went on vacation and definitely didn't leave to do something related to a plan. They also left a sweater behind that had their faces on it, so Spider-Man and Batman would take pizza around in an attempt to make him feel better, but nothing would work. They will ask Pumpkin for help yet again, and after seeing Pizza throw up a chair that ends up putting a crack in Red Squib's cocoon, he would go grab a bad tummy pill. Running back to the group as junk goes flying through the sky due to Pumpkin throwing up, Pumpkin was able to make it back in time, and Pizza ends up feeling much better after taking the pill. Pumpkin puts on the sweater that those guys left behind, and everybody pats each other on the back, but before they could truly celebrate, Red Squib's cocoon hatches. Red Squib now has a body, and is now referred to as Red. He would rip the sweater off Pumpkin in an attempt to have it for himself and steal Batman's boots, which forces Batman to swap his hands and feet's position. Red would then mess with the group, which forces them into Pumpkin's room, and they try to hold the door closed as he attempts to get in. They would ask Wanda for help, but she ends up helping Red instead by scaring them out the window. Wanda would give Red her business card before leaving, but Red would simply crumble it up and toss it to the ground. He would then go to the basement, and when there, he would wave at Pizza, which shows that Red does care about some people, and he would hug a teacup found on the table. The main group would then show up and try to play a lullaby to put Red to sleep, similar to last time, but it doesn't end up working. Red would yet again mess with the group, but before he could do anything vicious, those guys would come out the pizza and return from their vacation. They will see Red and celebrate that he is hatched and decide that they should go celebrate with a tea party. This calms Red down, and this new trio leaves to go to celebrate. In the next episode's intro, Wanda would end up disrupting it and send Batman and Spider-Man on a haunted roller coaster ride, and near the end of it, we will see the painting of who the previous owner may have been, but they're launched into Pumpkin's room before we could get an answer. Spider-Man would then find Wanda's business card, which would have on it, inside the fridge. And once they look inside it, they basically find a gate to another dimension in the fridge, similar to how pizza leads to the pizza dimension. It's just that this one is made of caves, ice, and snow. Entering with their origami armor, they would walk around and Squib would eat a piece of ice, which ends up making him sick. Pumpkin would slip and cause the whole group to fall and slide on the ice floor until they reach a large empty room with a key in a laser cage, a big door, and a dance floor. While Pumpkin steps on the dance floor, a vinyl player would pop up and play the song that he was trying to learn to dance to. He originally shuts it off and doesn't want to dance out of embarrassment, but he would eventually calm down and bust it down. This ends up opening the cage, and they're able to get the key, which Squib sneezes on and ends up destroying. Luckily for them, the thing would show up and seem to be able to make the key that they needed, which would then open a hole in the door. Spider-Man would get stuck, but with the power of the perfect sticker and a bit of pulling, they would get him out, but yet again, they will be sliding on ice. It's just that this time they will enter a large empty room that almost looks like a temple due to the empty window arches. In the middle of this room is a dollhouse of Spider-Man's house. Spider-Man would see a red doll in Pumpkin's room, which he realizes is out of place, so he grabs it and moves it to the basement. This ends up affecting the real world and causes Red to float and slowly be taken to the basement. Squid would then whistle to the both of them since they found another room. It's just that this one was dome-shaped and had a little music box in the middle. Once played, a little ghost figure pops out, and shadow figures of Wanda would dance along the walls and end up making the group's shadows dance as well. This freaks out everyone and causes them to run away, except for Spider-Man, who is actually fascinated by the music box. He reaches out to touch the little figure in the middle, and in the shadows we can see that the ghost Wanda was about to kiss his head. Before she can, Batman returns and grabs Spider-Man in order to escape. The group runs around the cave until they reach a cliff that's surrounded by a void illuminated by purple eye shards. A glitching ghost cannon would appear, but this one would actually stop glitching and stick around. They climb up the stairs and end up finding Wanda inside, sitting at an empty table. Wanda would end up curing Squib's sickness and get Batman some new boots, which would end up allowing him to switch the position of his hands and feet back to normal. The group would then thank Wanda and they would all pat her back, but then everything around them will start to melt into a dark cyan goo, which causes the group to fall into the void. They will end up in the living room and be stuck due to the goo being sticky. Those guys in the basement will then come out and read the group a poem that they're forced to listen to. We then cut to Wanda, who's back in the cabin with a photo in a frame, which was taken when they were all patting her back. She would then draw a heart around them and say, "Friends." The next episode opens with Batman at his noir detective desk and looks at a photo of Tuba since she seems to be missing. He then gets a call from Piderman which lets him know that he needs his help. Batman rushes outside to find Piderman tied to some train tracks with Wanda on top of a train that has pizza on it like it was a Thomas the Train character. Piderman ends up entering the pizza dimension, falling down through a hallway. On his way down, he ends up finding Tuba, who hitches alongside the fall, and together they fall through another hole. The hole ends up sending them back to their normal dimension, and they fall on Batman. They celebrate that Tuba has returned home, and Wanda is with them as well, but she ends up getting arrested and put in the back of a police car. And I know what most of you are thinking. If everything is canon, then wouldn't that mean that this city is a new location? And to that I say, no. Remember, there was a city at the end of episode 2, so it's most likely that this is where they're located at the end of this episode. And that's it so far. That is the story of Baman Piderman at this moment. Something small I want to mention is that the whole detective part I mentioned at the end came from a special episode, but everything is canon, so there's that. But that doesn't mean that Wanda is gone forever due to being arrested. The story of Baman Piderman is expected to wrap up in the next 3 episodes, but when would that come out? I'm not sure. But like I said, back in March of 2021, a portion of the new Batman and Piderman episode was shown, so who knows. Back in October 2023, Smallboo posted on Twitter a reanimated version of the first episode and even posted a reanimated version of the intro. It's just that this time, Batman has a mustache. I hope you enjoyed this story about a duo and their inanimate objects and creature friends. Like I said, the story is weird but simple, but I feel like it's weirder if you watch it yourself since you see everything, whether it's Pizza's detailed face-up clothes or Batman moving in the strangest ways. Like I said, I highly recommend you watch the whole series even after watching this video since it's this cute and funny series that I feel needs more attention. If either Alex or Lindsay are watching this, I really like what you guys created and I'm hoping to see a new episode one day. I also plan on playing Later Alligator now since that looks cool too. So that's the end of this video. I have no idea how long it's going to be, but I hope you enjoyed your time here. As always, if you like this video, I hope you like and subscribe, and maybe leave a little comment below if you want me to cover something. And that's about it. Okay, bye now.